Hello, everyone. How are you doing? I hope you are well. I am Dr. Tammy. I am your success strategist and literacy educator. I help you strategize how to move in the direction of more and prepare for what's next. And today we are here, and I say we because I have my girl Trifanya, Miss Elegant Granny, on social media joining me today, and we are wrapping up our last two discussions this week and next week of what doesn't kill you makes you blacker. And so we're reading this one, and we're just going to share a little bit about what we've read and what's going on with it. And so if you're coming in, say hello to us in the comments. Please tell us where you're joining us from if this is your first time, and whether or not you're reading with us. I know we have several people reading with us and joining us in this reading. And so, I like to know who you are and where you are and what's going on. So just say hello to us. So I'm going to invite her in and allow her to introduce herself. And we will be announcing the next book next week. So stay tuned for our September read, and we'll have more to share next week. But today we're about in the middle of the book. We're discussing chapters 6 through 9. And so, and we'll just give you some highlights from those chapters. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you all for being here. I am going to put the link. So if you want to join the reading community, you can. The link will be scrolling across the bottom of the screen. And so I invite you to join us if you're not already a part of our wonderful reading community. Y'all know this has been interesting. It's been an interesting shift. And so I have a couple of them. So if you're a woman and you want to join a reading community, or you are a man, hey, we got something for you. So, all right. So let me get this together here. Hey there, how are you?
Hey, I am doing well.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself to the audience, and all that good stuff, and how they can find you. And then I'm going to share this out while you do that. How about that?
All right. I am Trifanya Osei. Most know me as Elegant Granny. I am your restoration strategist and also podcaster, creator, and host of the podcast Proactive Eye. You can find me on my link tree. I have plenty of links there where you can find me at linktree/Elegant Granny. And I'm a restoration strategist who supports victims and survivors of abuse as they transition out. In addition, I also assist their supporters, their friends, and loved ones who are helping them as they transition out with the educational tools that they need, because people want to help. They don't always know how to help. And what you want to happen is for your loved one to escape safely. And that's what we all want, safely and with ease. And so they can live a more sustainable life. So that's what I do. I'm Elegant Granny. You can find me on my link tree. And I'm also author of 3 books, author of 2, co-author of 1 that Dr. Tammy and I did co-author together, called You Can, with 31 other authors we did. And so that's out. So you can find it on, yeah. So
Oh,
you can find it.
wait. I got the
You can,
copy. I got the copy. Here it is. Here it is. Here it is. Here it is. You
yeah,
can.
I do
There,
too.
there
So
you go.
you can get it from either one of us. If you want to get it from her, you can go to her links and get it. And if you want to get it from me, you can go to my links. There's my link there, linktree/Elegant Granny. You can purchase it there. I have 2 other books there. But You Can is the first one we've done together. I'm actually hoping that we do more than one together.
Right. I agree. Okay, so your girl is over here doing the most. Oh my goodness. So I am trying to find the right ticker because I realized I have the wrong one going across. So that one's a good too. But I want the one for the club. So we'll see. That's better. That's better. That's better. All right. So let's just get into it. Let's just dive into it. So the chapters we're reading the middle, we read chapter 6 through 9 or through that. So if those of you that are reading with us or want to read with us, we're reading to that point. So you can definitely connect with us and join our reading community, which there's the correct link down there. You can join us and we're reading. I was in the midst of sharing, so that's why I'm doing the most over here. Trying to share on Facebook. I shared on Twitter, but I didn't share on Facebook. So, okay, so let's talk about it. Is there anything that you found interesting that you wanted to point out? Of course, I found some trivial things that were interesting that just because in chapter 6 I saw my name and I was thinking, oh. And then I realized, wait a minute, up until that chapter, and I think chapter 9 is what we agreed upon. I think we figured it out up until chapter 9. He seemed like all the women that are mentioned in the book starts with T's. He had Tracy, then Teresa, and now it's Miss Tammy with an I though. She messed up. I don't know, but that's usually how people misspell my name if they do. But anyway, and so I just found that interesting. So that was just like one of those things. I always pay attention to patterns. So that was like one of those pattern things. And I was like, that's really interesting. Like, is that intentional or are these the real names or he's just choosing those names? But then he kind of deviates from that. So maybe it's just their name, just so happens to be their name. All right. Hi, Brianna. How you doing? Thank you for joining us.
You know what? Another thing I noticed that was a pattern. Throughout chapters 6 through 9 and the other chapters before, every job he ever gets was jobs that would end. They would call him to the office. He would work there maybe like 2 or 3 years, and then he would get called to the office and they say you no longer needed, because the type of jobs he would get, they were paid through grants and things like that, some trust, and so they wouldn't last that long. And so that was like the trend for him, which is what I see in a lot of young Black men today. Years ago, like men my age or older, they tend to be on jobs a lot longer versus the men, who are younger than me, and I'm 50 plus. But the men younger than me, they seem to always get these jobs, if they're not working for themselves, that don't last that long. And I was kind of thinking to myself, for me, if that was my lot, that would be very disheartening and very discouraging. I don't know what I would do if I, had to deal with that.
Right, right. And I don't know if it's based on race and ethnicity or if it's the age. It's kind of two different factors that are going on here because I find that younger ones, yeah, they don't stay on jobs like, my parents or even myself, as long. Like they're not, this sounds good for today. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
So that would be something to unpack and really talk about, like what is that, and look at the patterns of that, like the reasons he was let go, and was that connected to the title, and with the topic of the book, or is it just more a generational thing? So
Yeah.
interesting. So yeah. All right. So, and there was, I'm sure, look, I'm sure we got some more patterns that we'll pick out, but that's just some of the things that we picked out with pattern wise. So let's go. So I'm going to go back to 6, and I want to talk a little bit about the hookup. I don't know if you know what I mean. So apparently Miss Tammy's boyfriend or friend, let me not say boyfriend, knew a guy who helped him get one of his positions, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And he was just making the reference like that was probably the first time he has ever experienced what his perception of white privilege is. The idea that he could go to the front of the line, that he could be treated special because of that connection. And so I made a note that when he talks about that, the hookup. And then
Mhm.
he also, in that, it made me think about the difference between who you know versus what you know, and how
Mhm.
nowadays we really have to leverage who we know. And I say nowadays, but I remember getting out of college with a degree and having a difficult time because I moved to a different city. And I realized that even though I was qualified for the job, I didn't necessarily get it because I didn't really know anyone. Like, I didn't have any connections. I didn't have anyone to vouch for me, so to speak, and give some kind of credibility to my reputation. And so I found that it was really difficult. But those who knew people got in there. Of course, it was preference, but I also think about, like, okay, so let's see how um is that connected to race, right? Is that connected to race, or is it just about who you know versus what you know? Because he talks about that hookup, and of course he makes that connection, how that's what he figures it feels like for the right privilege, to go at the beginning of the
Mhm.
line and get all these special privileges and sit in the administrator's office, and do that. So were there any time, and I guess we're going to talk about this, so those of you that are joining us, were there any times that you experienced something that you thought, oh, and it was a situation based on who you know versus what you know? So if you have that experience, put that in the comments. I just found that interesting. I just found that fascinating
Mhm.
that he brought that out. So I don't know. So that was just one thing, because I just remembered that being one of my experiences, that you
Mhm.
know it was more of that, and how I don't know if I've ever experienced the opposite, though, that he referred to. Like, I don't know if I've ever gotten preferential treatment and experienced it. Like he was talking about the hookup. I don't know if I've ever experienced that. Or there's not a situation that has really stuck out to me that I knew someone, and so they were like, "You, hey, come on out to the front of the line," right? So that's really interesting. I just thought I'd bring that out.
Yeah.
Thoughts or anything else you have?
I only remember experiencing that one time. I was in high school, and I didn't have a summer job or anything like that. And so the VOTEC professor that I had in high school, he had just gotten information that there was a slew of part-time people needed at this place that no longer exists anymore in our nearby town. It's a behavioral health and developmental service institution, and they just finally closed it down earlier this year. But in 1986, I remember I was looking for a job while I was in high school because I had finished just about all of my credits. I was only taking 2 classes. And so I needed something to do. And so he said, well, there's a job at this particular place, where at this particular place, and the position, my grandfather was one of the head people. So naturally, because everybody loves my grandfather and he was one of the head people, because of who I was, they just automatically they didn't even treat me like they did the others. I just went on in, you know. So that's my only experience that I remember of what it could feel like, so to speak. Other than that, that's the only time. And I was about 17.
Yeah.
Yep.
Your network is your net worth. Hey, Brandon, how are you? So
Oh,
yeah,
yes, it is.
so that was in there. Okay, so I'll let you go. You can go. I'll let you. If there's something you wanted to just mention, like, and he just talks about different things. And I want to say, while she's pulling out whatever, that these chapters are really, he's given. It was a shift. The first chapter seemed more historical, and he gave a lot of historical background and some of the systematic things and systemic things that are going on. And now it shifted to more personal stories, like what his personal experiences were during this time and being a Black male in America. So,
Yeah. One thing I would bring out, though,
all right.
one thing I will bring out is as he was talking about that particular position at the was it Carnegie Mellon University, how he had the job, everything, he was very qualified, but there was this one particular thing in his life that he continuously told a lie about, of why he didn't have it, and that was his driver's license. So during this meeting with the person who told him that he was hired and shook his hand and everything, and then just before he left, he found out that he would need his driver's license. And so he went ahead and he was being honest for the first time about him not having it. And so he was under the impression, well, he assumed that he would go ahead and get the job and they would give him grace to go ahead and try to work on getting it. But that didn't happen like that. So on as the story goes, he ended up not getting the job. And then at some time went by, about a little bit less than a year, he ran into one of his former high school students who had gotten to be 16 at the time. She was working at Popeyes, I think, and she was driving a car. She was one of those unlikable students. And she, at some point, since the time that he used to teach her till the time he saw her again at Popeyes, she had become more likable. She had straightened herself out a little bit, and she had gotten herself to where she was into her goals and her future and all that stuff. And that's when it hit him. All this time he's been avoiding getting his license, thinking he could just slide through life, not getting it, and just continuously lie about why he didn't have it. Right. And then he had this moment like, okay, this person, I remember when she was like this, now she's doing this. She has a brighter future. And if she can drive, certainly I can go and get my license. There's no problem. So that's when he decided to go ahead and get his license. It took him 3 different tries, but he went ahead and did it. So the next time we had the next position of another job that required him to have his license to drive, he was able to say, I have my license.
Yeah. Yeah. He was able to say yes. And now, so this is more of a question. I don't know the answer, so you may not either. But in getting his license, he said parallel parking is racist. And of course, we have theories. So do you have a theory of why he mentioned that? Because he doesn't really expound on it. It's kind of in parentheses, just kind of set apart. But I'm thinking that sounds like one of those little digs, like, parallel parking. And
I have no idea.
because getting a license, like he never really needed to drive. He never, depending on where you live, like you do public transportation and that sort of thing. So his situations never lended itself to it. But I was just curious. He put that in there. So I was thinking, something to think about. So anyway, you mentioned about his license. Yeah, the license was a big deal. Go ahead.
Oh, the last thing I want to say about that story about the license, the one line that I liked that he said on page I think it's 124, where when he realized that his former student had a license and he was going back in his mind about all the reasons and all the times he lied about not having it. And he said, the source of my shame was also the solution. So he been shamed all these years to tell all these other people that was trying to get him in higher positions that he didn't have a license, when that particular thing was his solution in him having better. All he had to do was just go get it.
Yeah, that was good. That's good. Good deal. All right. So anything else that resonated with you? I talked so much last time. I'm stepping back because he even talked about the barbershops and going to the barbershops and the black men hair and their hairlines and stuff. So
and that trend goes over into chapter 7.
Yes.
With that story.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. Like he mentioned that, and he didn't really talk about it that long. But I thought that's an interesting thing, to look. So I started thinking about the people I know, the men I know, and their hair, right? And so I'm thinking, is that really a thing? About because getting the edge ups and all that good stuff. About the maintenance, and he was talking about that, and of course, then he goes and talks about other races, white boys who get their hair, who goes to the black barbershop. And
Mhm.
he talks about the difference and how you know the difference. That there are some white boys who go to the black barbershops, and there's some that are woke, but they don't. And so he talks about some of those. So I like that he talks about some of those nuances that, I wasn't expecting, I guess I should say. I wasn't
Mhm.
expecting him to talk about that, to talk about the maintenance. We always talk about women and their hair, right? But men and
Yeah.
their hair maintenance. And then he talks about the difference and those who actually go into those establishments. And I thought that was interesting. So he makes some connections like that in these chapters that I think you should definitely read. So you haven't read the book. I'm trying not to tell too much because I want you to read, because it's a lot of personal stories. And so I'm trying not to give the stories away, because then why read the book? But those are some things that he points out, and I thought those were some interesting topics.
I didn't realize that it was as detailed for men what they go to do at the barbershop as it is for us at the salon. I did
Right.
not realize it was that detailed, and I was like, wow.
I know, like we always talk about women and our hair, but it's like, oh, it's a thing.
Yeah. I mean, when he
It's a
goes
big
into
deal.
the goatee and all that stuff, and I'm like, wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, yeah. And it costs
Yes. Especially when he
a
was
little bit of
talking
it.
about as often as they had to go to do those things. I was like, that's a lot of money, because I started adding up, because I started thinking about how much it costs around here if I was a dude and I had to go to get that done. And I was like, that's a lot of money. That's quite
Yeah.
a bit of money.
And during this pandemic, it makes a lot of sense, why,
Yeah.
I was looking at my uncle and I was thinking, I didn't realize, he had beard and all that, and I just never see him with that. And so, and then reading this, it made me think like, yeah, like, you can't get it done. Like, there's a lot of this maintenance. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
that they do. So,
It is. Yeah.
so that's mine. So I don't want to take over.
Oh
Anything
no,
else?
that's all I
Okay.
had for
Okay.
chapter 6.
Okay. And any of the other chapters, 7, 8, 9, any of them?
Chapter 7.
So I know that's when he goes into the hair and stuff in chapter
Yeah,
7.
chapter
So,
7. Yeah, and then chapter 8 is when he gets into talking about when Obama was about to come in office. You know, um, in 2008, and his fear. He had this strong fear. This the part of the whole thing that I focused on, that he had this strong fear that if Obama actually got into office, something tragic was going to happen to him. So in his subconscious, he was actually hoping that he kind of wouldn't get it, just because he didn't want anything bad to happen to him, although he really wanted Obama in office. Is that, and he carried that fear a long time. And I was like, he really, that was a lot for him to internalize, and he internalized a lot behind that. And how it caused a lot of physiological changes in him just by that one thought, because of President Obama being a black man. What could possibly happen to him? Then he's a black man in the White House, and all these things
and
because
that's a
of
whole
him.
conversation.
Yes, that's the whole conversation of that chapter. And then when it gets to the end, he realized, okay, none of this actually happened, but he held on to that fear the whole entire time. And I was like, that's a lot. I mean, it was exhausting reading it, because I was trying to imagine myself with that mindset. It
Right.
was exhausting for me to even imagine it. So I can't imagine what he actually went through, through all of that.
Yeah. It was, and I guess, growing up with, my brother, I saw a lot. And so, and saw it from his vantage point. And then, of course, you know, as I get more and more, I have two boys, so
Mhm.
it makes me look and view things and situations a little differently now. I'm a
Mhm.
little more critical and aware, and I've realized that sometimes I get that little feeling in the middle of my chest too, like, oh, hey, But I remember growing up, and some of
Mhm.
the things, that was out. I hate to say, because then it really showed my age. You had the NWA and all of that. You had that, and that really chronicled what was going on, and
Mhm.
in the community, and some of the things you hear about. But then when they had videos, you actually saw it on TV, and then to experience it, whole
Mhm.
nother level. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's all I have for chapter
okay,
8.
okay.
Chapter 9 was kind of funny. It was funny, but it wasn't funny. It
Yeah,
was
chapter nine got into a little relationship issues and stuff. So
yeah. The funny part for me was kind of nostalgic.
yeah.
Because he
Uh-oh.
goes into the whole, okay, so especially back in the 70s and the 80s, where there's the whole Kool-Aid, fascination in the black families. Because every black home that you went into, everybody had a Kool-Aid drawer. And absolutely nothing went in that drawer except Kool-Aid.
Well,
Nothing.
yeah.
And I mean absolutely nothing. Kool-Aid had a special reverence in every black home.
Had I known, I probably would have taken stock in, in
Yes,
Kool-Aid back then if I had known and old enough. I'm just saying, yeah.
yeah.
It
It
was a
was.
big
It
deal. And you
was.
could go in a household and that's what you were offered.
Yeah. It was either Kool-Aid, tea, orange juice, or cold water,
Mhm.
lemonade. Those were the 5 drinks that you were going to be offered, and that was it. Nothing else.
Yeah. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
really interesting. Kool-Aid. Yeah, Lizzie. Hey, how are
Yeah.
you?
But what was funny about the Kool-Aid in the story was that's what he carried on with him to his house, because when he got that other job, it was another job that he ended up with um, when he left the school at the was it YMCA, I think. He ended up there, and that's the other job. I think I mentioned that when they asked me if he has a license, he was finally able to say yes and be for real about it. Um, he I think that job ended and he went to another job. He found another job as a site coordinator and open site coordinator, and he made a lot of money. So he was saying at his age to be making $36,000, that was a lot of money for someone his age. I think he was like 27, 28 years old. And he was quite proud of himself. He was finally able to leave his parents' home, get his own place, and finally get a car. And so he in his home he carried on the Kool-Aid tradition, the orange juice tradition,
Yeah,
and
and
that's all he
of
had.
course, you can't talk about Kool-Aid without talking about how he mentioned about using so much sugar.
Oh my gosh, the sugar. And I have a personal story about that too. He
Uh-oh.
said the sugar, the sugar, it was so much sugar in it that you could plant the spoon in it and it would stand up on its own.
Yep.
And I was like, oh my gosh.
You had Kool-Aid with your sugar as opposed to sugar in your Kool-Aid.
Yeah. See, the house that I grew up in, we always had 2 pitchers. I could not stand all of that. So whereas everybody else's Kool-Aid, it was 2 to 3 cups of sugar in the pitcher. My pitcher alone either had half, depending on what flavor it was, either had half a cup or just 1 cup. And nobody liked my Kool-Aid because they said it just
Was it
tastes
a
like
cup?
flavored water.
Was that
I'm
for
not
a
big.
gallon?
Yes. I'm not that big into sweets. I never have been, and nobody wanted it. So when it was my turn to fix it, I would have to do 2 pitchers, 1 pitcher just for me and 1 pitcher for everybody else. So yeah,
No, in my house, it was sweet. It was just like he described it.
yeah. I couldn't do it. It was like syrup to me. I was like, oh, that's just
Perfect.
no.
Oh goodness. That's why
But
this one
yeah,
just
he
gotta
heard.
stay
Oh,
away.
and yeah, and he was into that Kool-Aid thing until he had a couple of ladies at his house, and I think they were watching a game or something like that. I can't remember what they were doing, but anyway, he offered them something to drink, and I think this time their name is Jessica and Marguerite.
Hmm?
And get away from the T's. And Marguerite says, "Really, Kool-Aid? Who still drinks Kool-Aid?" And so it just did something. He internalized it. He internalized that,
Oh
and
yeah.
he started working on not drinking any Kool-Aid. He weaned himself off of it. And I think it was like a 2-year process where he just didn't drink Kool-Aid anymore. But that whole Kool-Aid scene,
Yeah.
that Kool-Aid scene, that I laughed at that.
Yeah, because that pretty much, I guess, as far as his life, that took us through like 2008, I think is where this is,
Yeah.
where Jessica and Marguerite, were there in his apartment and stuff. So that's kind of where we are in the book. And next week we'll pick up with the remainder, and we'll finish it off. We'll finish off the book. So, are there any last minute thoughts? Any last minute ideas, thoughts, concepts, things you want to just throw out there before we wrap up for today?
No.
All right.
No, it was just a lot. He just brought out a lot of nostalgia for me in
Yeah.
those, few chapters. So
Yeah, because he talked about a lot of things in the past. I was like, I can relate to that. Now I can relate to getting the license thing because I was like, I'm getting my license, and
same here.
I wanted to be able to go. But other than that, the other things, yes, he did. He brought
Yeah.
out some things, just about the election and just about the Kool-Aid and all the different things, going to the barbershop and hanging out there and, that sort of thing. So I think it was interesting. So we're going to pick up with chapter 10. So those of you who are not reading with us, we invite you to read with us, join in the fun, or if just join the discussion, we'll take that too. We'll be back next week on Wednesday. We're going to change up our days. I know we're doing it. Schedules are getting crazy. So we'll be here Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern. Now you tell me if I got the time wrong.
No, you got it right.
2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central. We'll see if I can get that, commit that memory. But I'll make a post and we'll announce it the day before just to remind you. But we will be back here and we'll just talk about some of the topics and the things that are in the final chapters of the book. So for those of you who are reading with us, we invite you to come in. You can join us live on the screen, but you could
Please
also join us
do.
in the comments as well. And if you're on the replay, thank you for coming on the replay. For those of you that are joining us live, we appreciate you. Definitely, if you're on the replay, tell us hello in the comments and we'll be sure to interact with you. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, interact with us there. So what we're reading, finishing off for August, What Doesn't Kill You Makes You Blacker. And
It's
so
a great read. Please get it.
it
It's
is
a
a great
great
read. Some of the previous discussions were a little deep, so this one was a little light. We were just kind of mentioning some of the things that he talked about in here. So definitely read the book. That way you get a little bit of um, his experience and how he shares that. And he's really raw and he's honest, and so I like that about it. And the language is authentic, to say it
Yes.
nicely. To say it nicely. Even some of the chapter titles, are really interesting, but they're very descriptive in what he's talking about. So we invite you to join us in reading. The link is scrolling across the bottom. So definitely join us. And we look forward to seeing you next week here. I'm going to let Trifanya kind of close out, say her final thoughts, tell you how to connect with her one more time before we end and what she has going on, the latest and greatest. And then we'll wrap it up. How about that?
All right. Elegant Granny here. Some people call me Trifanya. That's my government name. And I am with Dr. Tammy reading this great book. I'm serious. If you do not have it, you missing out on some juice on this man's perspective on life. It is a great read. And like she said, today's discussion was very light. The other discussions, it was deep. It was deep. And last week, I think we were about an hour because it was that involved. But do get the book. Even if you don't get the book, um, join us in the chat, engage with us, ask us questions, throw in some of your experiences. We love to hear what you have to say. You can find me in the link that's there, linktree/elegant granny. You can find me in all of my links right there. I have several links and you can find me anywhere. You can even have a clarity call with me. I just added that link on, and schedule a talk with me. If you or anyone you know are um, having some issues in abusive relationships and you want to know what to do and have someone to talk to, you can just hit the clarity call link and we'll schedule it.
Awesome. Let's see if I can get this. Hello. There we go. That's awesome. And next week I can't wait for us to discuss these. The next chapter, chapter 10, just a little preview, is how to make the internet hate you in 15 simple steps.
Mm-hmm.
So we may actually go through those a little bit and then just
Yeah.
kind of give you a cursory of the other chapters. We'll see how it goes. We'll see what we decide to do with that, with the ending of the book. But I'm looking forward to talking about that and hearing all of your thoughts on that. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you for being here. I am Dr. Tammy. This is my girl from our community, Elegant Granny, who I call Trifanya now, but I try to make sure I use her handle. That is also her handle on social media. You can connect with her. Mine is Dr. Tammy Francis across all social media. And of course, you can connect with us and join the group right there using that link below. And we look forward to chatting with you next week. And next week, Wednesday, I don't even know the date. But 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central. I was going to say the date, but I don't even know. I guess it's the 26th, August
Mm-hmm.
26th at 2 p.m. Eastern and 1 p.m. Central. And I got to say Central for us because that's a whole nother thing. Well, I won't talk about it, but I'm just going to mention it. Eastern, like people say the time, like it's understood. Like they just say 8 p.m. Like you're supposed to know, like what time zone. Anyway, when you're another time zone. So we take so I make sure I spell it out for that reason.
Yeah.
But that's a whole little discussion. We'll talk to you later. Y'all have a great week. Bye.
Hi.
Bye, Lizzie. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you. See, someone agrees with me. Yes. Like it's just understood. 8 p.m. What? What? So, anyway. Thank y'all for being here. Appreciate you. And we will see you soon.